Belgium. Home to the best waffles, the best detectives, and... Hey everyone, Editing Mike here. I just needed to stop to clarify something. Peter Ustinov has always been the best Hercule Poirot. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Let me know in the comments. You are wrong though. So we're going to have to do this intro again. Belgium. Home to the best waffles, the best detectives, and... Hey everyone, Editing Mike here again. Sorry for the interruption. This image that I found of Peter Ustinov was from this site, British Period Dramas, which falsely claims that David Suchet is in fact the best Hercule Poirot. It is important to note that David Suchet is still alive, which of course influences and negatively influences the way people vote. So these alleged and apparent people who voted for this, we don't know who they are. They could have been constituents of David Suchet. They could have been from a David Suchet fan club. This could have been funded, in fact, by David Suchet. So we need to take this with a pinch of salt, with a grain of sand, with any other metaphor, and that Peter Ustinov is, in fact, the best Hercule Poirot, despite what this website and this false poll states. So we're going to have to do this intro again. I'm so sorry. Belgium. Home to the best waffles, the best detectives, and home to Red Sebastian. Let's see. Let's see what we've got.
Strobe lights, getting us in your eyes, cotton candy haze, we're floating up in space. Falling, we're at this town, screaming, but won't make a sound. Alice, show me your head.
I'm going to check where this is at the odds again. Is this high up? He's got a nice low voice. At the his range is good, but I feel like he was struggling to hit that note down there. Belgium. As of recording this, we're at number 7 in the odds, so there's going to be something incredible happening here. It's a little bit weird. I'm gonna take this back.
Candy haze, we're floating up in space. Falling, we're at this town.
I mean, the direction of the lights and his moving is working.
Alice, show me your head. Take it.
I know my problem. I'll tell you in a moment.
Step into the mirror, it's a bright new dimensions where no words are needed. Feel the connection when the clocks never tick. Love is the end and come down through the looking glass.
I know my problem. My problem is the original. I have not heard the original, but I can already tell that there's so much post-production on the original that in that last pre-chorus section there, we should have really well heard the melody doubled an octave higher. We should have. And because he's a vocalist who's human, this is the problem with doing such techno songs live, that humans are performing them. Humans have emotion. Humans have their own, they're sentient, and they communicate that, and their voice is never perfect, which is good because they're not robots. I'm going to check out a little bit of the studio version just to kind of compare and contrast, because I can see that this is actually a very interesting song. But so far, vocally, it's not working because it's meant to be, in my opinion, until I hear it, maybe I'm wrong, by something more robotic rather than somebody with emotion. You can't fake the robot thing vocally.
Love is the end and come down through the
We need it higher, doubling.
Strobe lights, getting lost in your eyes, cotton candy haze, we're floating around in space, getting tired, never felt so alive. Caught up in his maze is where I wanna start.
That's epic.
Flying deep underground. Silence never felt so loud.
I can hear that harmony.
Step into the mirror to bright new dimensions where no words are needed. Feel the connection.
There needs to be stronger doubling up the octave. I can hear it. There needs to be stronger. You can hear that doubling up the top. And it's not working live. He's got a great voice. I don't think this song's going to do as well as people think it will. I don't know. I maybe you tell me where I'm wrong, because he's an amazing vocalist. Like, did you hear that range, the control as well? But this song, at this point, maybe it's going to work on Eurovision stage, because Doomsday Blue, for example, I didn't think would work on Eurovision stage and worked amazingly last year. So they might be able to get that auto-tune quality on there, which is really needed here, because he's too good a vocalist and too emotional of a vocalist for this to work as a live performance as shown here. And that's why I believe if we go into the studio version, it's going to sound much more polished. Not because it's the studio version, but it's because it's the studio version of this particular style, which will flop if not using the studio post-production elements and technological assistance, which this was composed for. And then his virtuosic kind of runs up in that higher register, in my opinion, doesn't suit the style very well too. At this point, the backing vocalist who's singing up the top, as I said, it's doubled, doesn't work too, because it's just one vocalist who is, once again, doesn't have any electronic manipulation or post-production on it, or auto-tune, which is needed here. Not even auto-tune. No, definitely auto-tune, not pitch correction. Actually, yeah, pitch correction, because human voices, as I said, they're not perfect. And here is so electronic, you can't have electronic, and then human, which is not electronic. That's why it doesn't work for me. That was great, and I'll tell you why. Yeah. He's doing everything he can. He's doing everything he can to bypass the fact that he's human. If anything saves it, is those 2 times where he held that hugely high note up there, which was held for a very long time, whilst we had that techno beat underneath. Listen to how he's not putting any vibrato onto anything, and he can't. Vibrato is the shakiness of the voice, right? Like what you will associate with opera singers, and you can't put vibrato into this ever. And it's like not a hint, and sometimes he does, because that's what you're trained to do, right? Because you're human. But vibrato is variations, small waves of variations of pitch, and this needs to be so perfectly one pitch. Each time he sings needs to be hitting the pitch without any kind of shakiness, I guess, which is acceptable in many other situations. And so he's doing what he can, but there's only so much you can do unless you're a robot. So hear this last note, and this is why it works, because of the total control he has to stay on the one pitch without wavering at all. Wavering, which would be usually acceptable in popular and classical music. And then when he came off it, he went down, he slid down in pitch in a way that you would feel like can be done electronically. This is important. And that's why there are times where it works so well, because it takes that utter control. So here. So your eyes, like he needs to hold that note. Well, listen again. He needs to hold that note without any wavering. The way he did it there had a little bit of wavering, tiny hint of vibrato, which is acceptable and expressive, but it can't happen with this particular style. This is the situations where it doesn't work. And he knows that. He's a professional. But as per this performance, apart from those amazing sections where he held those notes without wavering whatsoever and adding a more electronic vocal quality to his voice, which is so hard to do, this is going to differ a lot.
Falling where up is down.
So we'll hear that difference.
Falling where up is down.
So it's normal to have a little bit of vibrato at the end of each phrase of holding a note, which he did there, and he held it quite well, let me just say.
Falling where up is down.
Notice how there was a no vibrato here, where he sang the word down, and even at the end, it was still all just held, which is unrealistic.
Where up is down.
Compared to
Where up is down.
that little bit of vibrato at the end.
Strobe lights, getting lost in your eyes. Cotton candy haze, floating up in space.
So we can hear how every single note is just the note. There's barely a human quality. There is a little bit of his vocal tone coming out, which is fine, which is what we also need.
Into the mirror to bright new dimensions where no words are needed to feel the connection.
And even that doubling vocal, right, is just so on point. This is what they're going to struggle with. Coming in, doing a techno song like this is so risky, because you are now dealing with all of the instruments being synthesized, almost, including the human. And you need a non-human quality to your voice, which, as much as he tried, and there were so many parts which he did amazingly well at in that performance, in that particular performance anyway, he just couldn't get. So between now and the Eurovision Song Contest semi-finals, they're scrambling, I would imagine, to work on going, how can we make this less human? That's what I'm thinking. Let me know your thoughts down below, because this is a very interesting song which can flop so badly if they're not careful with it. I'm always seeing every single comment. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.